Good morning.
Good morning.
And good afternoon as well, for those of you who are logging in from Europe. So this is my third out of the 10 talk series. And as of today, for the next 6 weeks, including this week, I'm going to talk about the Koan study. When I say I'm going to talk about the Koan, some people will say, oh no, I'm going to logging it off. Koan seems to be highly misunderstood, and many people do feel Koan study is kind of scary. And I totally understand that. And coming from the other side of the Zen, I used to feel that way too. So one of the themes of my 10-time talk series is that I really like to entice people more and more to join Okumura Roshi's Genzo-e and also Dogen study. And as you know, Dogen utilizes lots of koans. And then, so I kind of like to help people to get rid of this sense of fear or disgust, so to speak, about the koan, and then make it into more enjoyable and fun. And that's actually something personally happened to me after I met Okumura Roshi about 22 years ago. And then coming from the other side of Zen, and then deprogramming myself, and then coming to Dogen's line, I really started to see such wonderful fun, actually, and enjoyment studying Koan. So I kind of like to, go through that portion, and in hope of maybe you will feel that way too someday, I hope. So for the including today and the next 2 weeks, I'm basically talking about the Shoyoroku, usually translated as a Book of Serenity. And then after Genzo-e, I'm also talking about the koans from Eihei Shingi, Dogen's Pure Standard for the Zen Community, Part 1. Now, when you say Koan study, most of the time people are really talking about Rinzai Zen, how Rinzai school utilizes Koan, which, well, in my formative years, for the first 15 years, I was a part of it. So how it works, and it's usually highly publicized form of Koan Zen is, let's say you go into 7-day session, and after 3rd days or so, and you are sitting really deeply and still, and everybody's coming into a deep samadhi. And then you hear this subtle sound of a footstep of Roshi coming into Doksan room, and his jisha coming out to Zendo and make an announcement saying, for those of you who are sitting, let's say, on the north side of Zendo, Doksan line is open. And then immediately you have to stand up and then grab your zafu and dash to this line you have to get hold of in front of a Doksan room. And then it's a bit like a musical chair. And then if you have 10 people, there are only 5 chairs. So you just go and grab the seat. And for those of you who are missing the chair, you will basically let away, go back to your seat. And then there will be a bell coming, and then a door open. You open the door, you do this three bows, and then in front of your teacher, you do 3 full bows, and you state, my name is such and such, my koan is such and such. And then earth shakes, heaven breaks, and something incredible happens. Or if it doesn't happen, Roshi picks up the bell and go away. Chin, 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 chin. That's the sign you have to go. And then you have to go back and you have to sit with this koan for days and weeks. And then next chance, you actually again go into the same process. And sometimes they say, oh, you passed. So you go to the next level. And then you are given next koan. So I was going through that for years. And then having lots of questions about this, because what you learn from Buddhist texts, Buddha's saying all over that, it just doesn't in sync with what we are doing in this Koan study style. And also, in those years, I was working in hospitals and hospices, and it just doesn't go in sync with what happens in our life as well, and also what I'm supposed to do with these people. So around that time, as I mentioned in the first week, I was going back and forth my hospice training period. And then I met Okumura Roshi. And then Okumura Roshi's introduction into Dogen Zen really changed how I view Koan. So most possibly, well, maybe out of some of you, you probably don't know what Koan is. That's a good thing. There are many stories about our ancestors left to us in the form of, let's say, transmission record or a book of sayings of those people. And approximately there are about 1,700 of those. And out of those, let's say, storybook, just to kind of ease your attention toward Koan, I'm going to call it as a storybook. And out of this storybook, there's a really interesting stories included. And these are stories of, from Rinzai school point of view, it's a moment of great enlightenment. But from our point of view, it's like, wow, this is a wonderful, I see moment, or ha-ha moment. So it's a moment of clarity, moment of verification comes. And all of us go through that, don't we? But these stories are very interesting, and also, unlike this seriousness, we get kind of embedded from this publicly so well-known Rinzai Koan style. Many of them are so humorous. It's really funny. And if you really start to examine it, you sometimes, what? Did he really say that? It's really funny. Loud out loud, laugh out loud, LOL. We are so used to with short abbreviation, we don't know the full name. It's so, there are so many LOL moments. So, and also another thing that I was quite, mixed up with, so therefore, out there, many people are probably mixed up too. There are two major Koan books available in the United States as well, and available, of course, in Japan as well. One of them is called Hekiganroku. Hekiganroku is translated Blue Cliff Record, I think, yes? And another one is Shoyoroku, translated usually as a Book of Serenity or Book of Equanimity, I think. Did you know those are completely two different books, and then Hekiganroku is basically for Rinzai school, and then Shoyoroku is for, well, I always say Dogen school, but it is Soto school, right? So the difference is quite clear, actually, when you start to examine it. I don't like to go into too much of a technical conversation, but just for the sake of, creating the basis, Hekiganroku has some sort of specific goal. This is collected and edited for the sake of people do kensho, which is the word Dogen really dislike. And then, so therefore, it's collected kind of randomly, and then also directed with commentaries and etc., so that it is almost like a riddle. And then, there's lots of jokes about this in Japan as well. So for instance, the image we get is someone said, abracadabra, and someone said, oh, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And then say, oh, I got it! And some people are like, I didn't get it. That kind of thing. But it also sounds like that in English translation as well, and also introduction and direction they are kind of putting into. So often we feel as if Koan is like, the type of the riddles there's no answer, or the type of the riddles to erase your thought, etc., etc. And in other words, it's like a meaningless conversation, so to speak. But Shoyoroku is different. Shoyoroku is really about what we call 実物提示. It's a presentation of the true reality, or manifestation of the true reality. And also, it is, how to say that, chronologically edited instead of random one. So it starts with Gautama Buddha's kind of fantastical tale to the first, Indian ancestors, then go into early part of Chinese Zen, and then ends up with wonderful assortment of golden era of Tang Dynasty conversation. And then each koan is such wonderful, beautiful, sometimes really funny expression of what it is and how to be. So approach is totally different and goal is totally different. So I was quite surprised when I started to study with the Dogen's Koan. So today, as of today, I'm really going to talk about this Shoyoroku as a base to understand. Of course, Dogen treats Koan even much deeper and also in a very unique manner. But my purpose is kind of create the foundation so that you can go beyond to Dogen's way of treating Koan. And that's how I actually studied for the last several years. Now, first of all, I just want to show you something. This is our Shoyoroku. And this is kind of standardized Shoyoroku we are given from our teacher in Japan. It's the edited by famous academic Soto school priest Takasaki Jikido. And I just want to show you how it looks like. This is all in Chinese, of course, original. I was instructed repeatedly over and over and over and over and over. It is very important for us as a Japanese monk, Japanese priest, at least maintain some level of understanding of original Chinese. Because if you study Koan in Japanese yomikudashi or translation, you will miss some portion of it. And so therefore, what I do is every Monday I have a very strong support from group of the people in New York, and some originally Chinese people who helps me with the Chinese characters and etc. etc. And some are people just like me who originally started from Koan study in Rinzai school, shifted to Dogen school, and so therefore they help me to shape this study program. So this is how I usually do. If you can see this. I take original Chinese out and then put Japanese translation under. It's actually not translation. This is something called yomikudashi. You just read through without translating it as Japanese. And then, temporary, I would say, temporary English translation. And each week, this is case number 14. As of probably a few weeks from now, tomorrow we are still working on case 13, but eventually we will be using this. I see my New York Sangha member's name on the current one, so this is going to be something we're going to use. And then what we do is just like instead of taking it as a riddle to go get the bingo kind of answer, what we do is you just really examine it, and you really examine it word by word, and then you really start to see this expansion of the world. It is really not about very unique, each one of them is a description of this, what it is and how to be, but also gives you such incredible lays, hues of the color. And then just like Dogen's writing, once you start to read Dogen mentions this and Dogen mentions that, Dogen mentions this. So therefore you start to feel, wow, I could go into this lane and study this one and then come back. You can go into this lane and study, come back. Koan is just like that too. So Koan mentions many different things, and also it's just packed with all these quotations, also including this really fun folklore tales, etc., etc. And these folklore tales are, of course, all related with the Dharma. So once you really start to do this, it takes time. So about a year and a half ago, I contacted Okumura Roshi, and then traditionally in Soto school, our teacher Dogen left so many writings. So most of us spend our entire life studying Dogen's writing, and then we can't even complete it. So therefore, unfortunately, there aren't many people who are able to find the time to leave the commentary on Shoyoroku. And then I felt, well, I would like to give it a try. And then I, contacted Okumura Roshi, and Okumura Roshi said, yes, it is of course helpful to learn Koan if you write it down word by word, which was I was doing on the word processor. But the problem is Japanese word processor doesn't have those Chinese characters from ancient Chinese. So I was taking sometimes like 6 hours looking for the character. And then once I find the character, I have to talk to my Chinese friend and ask him, can you find out the meaning of this character in 8th century, etc. So Hojo-san kindly sent me, but if you like to save time, here it is. So he sent me the electric version of this. So our study process is really accelerating. So even though after 1 year and a half, we are just up to case 13 out of case 100. Oh, by the way, as you know, this is case 100, both Hekingandoku and Shoyoroku has 100 koans. So I'm kind of looking at this as a, maybe it's a 10 years project. But one koan after one koan, once we have some sort of website or blog lifted, I like to start to release it so that everyone can read. So when you do that, koan is not like a riddle. It's really a beautiful description, and it's really detailed description, which gives you so much joy and something you can really dig in. So hopefully, for the next 5 weeks or so, after today is just an introduction, I can kind of show you a little bit of these things we have done in the last year and a half. So I have 3 directions I take in by doing this. One direction was given to me from Okumura Roshi, and another one was a direction given to me from, well, not directly, but from what I read from Sawaki Roshi. And then third one is from Aoyama Roshi. Aoyama Shundo Roshi is probably the next person who will leave detailed commentary, completely detailed commentary on Shoyoroku, and she has been offering this detailed portion is really academic, and some portion is really moving and touching. She has such a great diversity of conversation for years with Myokoji. And she comes to Myokoji and offers 3 days Koan study lecture series, 4 times a year. And then I learned so much from her, and then I'm going to explain these 3 directions. I think this 3 direction already shows you a lot about Koan. First direction is, if you do have your copy of Realizing Genjo Koan, Okumura Roshi's wonderful book, probably the clearest commentary on Genjo Koan, page 14, please take a look at that later, because I don't want to get into that too much. But Koan is actually not, case to show and everybody find the answer to it. But Koan, the word itself, is the description of what this is. The Dharma, Buddha Dharma, and Buddha's way is. So therefore, each time we read Koan, we actually read it as a description of what it is. In another word, it's a very unique, wonderful description in translate. Or 色即是空、空即是色, form is emptiness, emptiness is form, etc., etc. And some of them are so like arrow to your heart. It's really beautiful. So that's the most important direction we have to take when we study Koan. Number two, I think Sawaki Roshi said this so that it's a bit of a critical statement toward this general concept of Koan study is kind of scary, and also more like a personal development, so that you work hard on Koan and you gain enlightenment, etc., etc. But he said Koan is, after all, it's a bit like Issan geki. I'm going to radically translate it. It's a bit like a scene from Commedia dell'arte, if you are Europeans. Or, for me, I lived in New York City nearly 40 years. Under the context of his statement, he said, well, Koan, after all, is a skit from Saturday Night Live. So, it is true. Some of the portion is so funny. And I guess when you hear that, you kind of let this tension from the shoulder go. You don't have to, there's no answer to find. You don't have to answer this to a teacher so that you receive approval from the teacher. After all, the other way of approaching Zen Koan is, remember, there are two ways of approaching religion. One way is I am here, and I want something from this religion. So therefore, if you study Koan in that way, it's almost like I want my personal development, and eventually I gain enlightenment, I become Roshi. So it's I way of looking at Koan. But we are just completely different. It is really about Buddha Dharma. So therefore, when you hear this statement, I really felt this long years of accumulation of this tension go. So I really like to kind of illuminate a really funny, humorous portion out of it. The third direction Aoyama Roshi often talks about is not just only Koan, but also Buddhist text in general is best to take it and rub it on your scar, which means rub it on your wound. And at the beginning it hurts, but eventually it soaks in, it works. I thought that was really amazing. For instance, I'm just going to go a little into this. Let's see, yesterday was a Saturday, and every Saturday morning we have a Shobogenzo class with the New York group. Currently I live here, so therefore everything is online, but usually we gather either in my apartment or Catherine's center. And then yesterday we started to read Shoji, Life Death. This is a part of my process of preparing the workshop. And looking at the, my group's response, I really like to sort out the format of the workshop. We did this workshop about several years ago, and Iris was a part of it. And then at that time it was two days, right? So, and also it was all in person. And so I was really doing something I have done in hospice situation, but this time I kind of like to change it a little bit. So, maybe some of you are really familiar with this fascicle called Shoji, Life Death. I think life and death is not the proper translation. So I think Okumura Roshi usually does this life death just as a word. It starts with Koan actually. And as you know, Dogen's writing is always the beginning is the conclusion, and it's the most important Koan. And then, so I was looking at this, it's not just a full koan, but two really interesting lines of the koan. And then it's a very striking statement. But you see, the thing is, it's a very serious matter. It's about life and death, and also many of us have been experiencing lots of death around us, just like yesterday with the Kikusan. Yes. So I was really interested in how this serious statement is treated in original Koan, and in this original Koan, it's presented this way. There's two guys, Kassan and Josan, is walking and then having conversation. Two monks are always having conversation. Not like the type of the conversation, did you see new seasons of Stranger Things on Netflix kind of conversation, but it is really about the Dharma conversation. So Kassan says, I would say life and death this way. And then Josan says, I would say life and death this way. And they're kind of competing. They are young and spunky. And then they say, well, you know what? There's this really wonderful teacher whose name is Daibai. Let's go to Daibai's place and let's have him say, which is right. And then they go to Daibai's place and I say life and death is this way. He says, I say life and death is this way. And then Daibai says, well, you know what? I'm a little tired today. I feel I'm sleepy. Can we talk about this tomorrow? Just like many teachers doing Koan. And then next morning, Kassan wakes up a little early and sneaks out and knocks the door of the Hojo and says, teacher, you said that yesterday because you didn't want to interrupt my friendship with Josan, right? And you know I am right? My statement is better, right? And then teacher said, well, because you did that, you are a little farther away, and the other Josan's statement is closer. So the reason is because he sneaked out and he said, I am right. So there's that division between I and him. I am better than that person. It's already fetched away from the Dharma. But in another word, I learned so much from this because as a hospice worker, you really have to have develop this sense of, there's a word called tone deaf. Some of us are so skillful in medical or knowledge, etc., etc. But some of us are life deaf. We don't really catch people's emotion, and we don't really understand life in general, life itself. And then we just in medically and academically developed, but we just can't sense what time and how much should be said. So, in another word, I'm usually very, very cautious and careful when somebody brings up the subject of afterlife, how does Buddhism see it, etc., etc. And it's always, there's a right moment, right time to say something. So in this case, what I'm seeing is, well, this is a really important statement, and it is a really important issue. And many of those people who are reading this Koan may be going through this very challenging time. Excuse me. But instead of presenting it in a serious manner, with a little bit of humor and joke, really helps, And then you can have a little bit of a smile on this, and then start to take it and start to put it on your hurting scar, hurting wound. So I really find, Aoyama Roshi's statement is really important, and also through that point of view, many of those koans are so skillfully created, and also this skillfulness really comes from the fact that these teachers really understand the human mind. So those are the three directions I set up and I discussed with the New York group when I started out this Koan study. So each Koan we are going to study, we have been studying, we approach from these three directions and then examine first the word by word, and then find out, wow, this is another sub-subject. And this is another it's like a sub-virant. There's a main theme in each, koan, and there's a sub-theme, another theme. Sub-theme goes another way. So it's a really wonderful way of studying Dharma, I think. And it's, I have to tell you, despite the fact that this is written in kind of arcane language, but once you really start to understand what exactly this was trying to say, it's immediately adaptable to your life, particularly for those of you who are in social service realm of work or clinical realm of work. You will learn so much from Koan. I did, so I hope you will too. So I only have like 45 minutes each time and 5 more weeks. So therefore, all of those koans I'm talking about, it's not going to be done in the way we do in New York group. But if you're interested, please join our group as well, if you are interested in detailed study of koan. But I just want to kind of pull out this funny portion, beautiful portion, medical portion, etc., etc., from some excerpts of Shoyoroku, and also Dogen listed up, pointed out so many koans in Ehe Shingi, and those are the things I'm going to pull out as an excerpt and then offer you a little bit of here and there. So I only have 5 more minutes today. So therefore, I'm just going to talk about case number 1, of course, opening. So I was quite struck by the difference between the opening koan, case number 1 of Shoyoroku, and case number 1 in Hekiganroku, because this is like a clear statement about what we are going to talk about in Shoyoroku. And it is called Seson Shinzo, temporarily translated, the world honored one ascends the seat. Koan is a story, so instead of reading the koan, I'm going to give you as a story. So this is also kind of funny story. What happens is, again, this is a fantastical story because this is obviously a made-up story. So one day, the world honored one ascended the seat, which means there's someone whose name is Manjushri, and of course, almost all of those koans has just a tiny little hint that this is a made-up story. And if you don't really understand this hint, you kind of take it like a really serious story. But when you say, well, during the time of Gautama Buddha, there was not ascending seat because he didn't have Zen temple, and the Manjushri is not a person. It's a really symbol of wisdom. So in this story, already said, okay, this is a fantastical, allegorical story. And then Manjushri strikes the Tsuichin. Tsuichin, when you hit the Tsuichin, it is the signal sending to the group of the people who lives in the monastery, like residents, to come over because there will be a talk, teaching. And then to teach, there's this high chair. It's not like a baby's high chair. It's like a large chair. You have a step, and then you sit on this chair if you are the head of the temple. And then you give teaching. So therefore, in this story, Tsuichin is set, and everybody comes, right? And then, there will be wonderful teaching is going to be offered. And then Gautama Buddha sits and steps down. And that's it. So this is the typical way of clearly observe the Dharma of the King of Dharma. The Dharma of the King of Dharma is thus. And then he just steps down. So this is really about direct presentation and manifestation, what it is. In another word, our teaching is Uchiyama Roshi often utilizes this analogy of sky and the cloud because after his retirement, I believe he lived along this place, and he often enjoyed walking just like Okumura Roshi always enjoys walking, starting from 3:30 in the afternoon. And then I think this is the same habit which Roshi did. And at that time, there's no skyscrapers or anything in that area, so there's an immense sky. And it's immense sky, but it looks empty, but it's packed with energy and matter, yes? So therefore, according to this interdependent energy related, sometimes something like a cloud starts to show up, and some cloud looks so arrogant, especially like summer, the thunderstorm cloud. So look at me, I'm so strong, and then starts to dissipate and goes away. So this, Uchiyama talks about this immense sky, but packed with energy and matter. In another word, this is Shuso. In Lotus Sutra, it says, no birth, no death, no increase, no decrease, and then there's nothing is really, there's no in and out. This is an immense, borderless emptiness, but it's packed with energy and matter. In it, because of this interrelatedness, sometimes something visible starts to show up, but this visible starts to show up, but it's kind of start to change, or always start to change, and then dissipate, etc., etc. So that's us. And then comes and goes, and comes and goes is thus comes, thus goes. That's Tathagata. Yes, we call Buddha as a Tathagata, but the Buddha is also Buddha with capital B, is this relatedness. So that's the. So therefore, we come out of this non-arising, non-decreasing, and then because of this, all this congregation, aggregates, and all this interrelatedness, we appear, and we shrink, and then we die, just like a cloud does. So therefore, to show that, you can just show. So in other words, the king of the Dharma is coming out, just a cloud coming out, showing, and then cloud, just like going away, he steps down. So this is yet another kind of lingo Shoyoroku utilizes as a presentation of true reality, as it is. Just for a little bit more. And of course, the person who collected these 100 koans out of 1,700 resources, one Shishogaku. And then one Shishogaku also offers a beautiful poem for each case. And then first case is almost like same poetry as Dogen's Honrai no Menmoku. And then a few weeks ago, Okumura Roshi was giving a beautiful talk about the poetry to Italian group of people. And then in it, he was offering Dogen's original face, the famous poem. And together with the poem, one Shishogaku added towards the end of this case one. So I like to offer this one. Sorry. As you probably know, this is a beautiful book. I think, unfortunately, you ran out of the stock, yes?
Right.
Okay. But I was really fortunate I was able to grasp one of the 5 left over of us. This is Okumura Roshi's beautiful translation of Dogen Zenji's Waka. And then when you open it, there's this waka called Honrai no Menmoku o Yomu. Honrai no Menmoku is originally translated, usually translated as original face, but in a Chinese character it's Honrai and Menmoku. So Honrai is this, and Menmoku is how graspable, visible things appears, like a matter, or like us, or like a cloud. So therefore, each one of those things comes out of this is actually visible presentation of this. So therefore, his waka says, 春は花、夏ほどとにす、秋は月、冬雪消えで涼しかりけり。And Okumura Roshi's translation is spring, flowers, summer, cuckoos, autumn, the moon, winter, snow does not melt. And all of that is really held by the last line, all season, pure and upright. In other words, when I read this, spring, my birth and my childhood, and summer, my 30 years old, 40 years old, being such a successful yappy. And autumn, my change. I'm starting to feel a little pain in my knees, developing this pain here, etc., etc. One day I look at myself in the mirror and say, no. And the winter is probably now. But this is just a natural manifestation of what it is. And so this life, living and growing and shrinking and also aging, getting sick, dying, it's just like a spring flower, summer cuckoo. So that's actually presentation, manifestation of the true reality. We are as well. Each moment of us is a presentation of the true reality. So the first case really determines the course of this book goes, and it's really beautiful, I thought. And so next time, I'm trying to take something kind of funny. First of all, give me just a couple more minutes. When I showed you this structure of Koan, let's see. Koan, Shoyodoku usually has 3 blocks. Main block is the case, and it starts with introduction and ends with these beautiful poems. But here, in case and also poem, there's a little bit of a parenthesis put. This is called jakugo, and usually translated as commentary, I think. But this is a really funny portion. You know, for instance, when you are watching a movie at home, and then your partner is really sucked into the story, you start to catch him saying, "Oh, don't do that!" Or like, "Oh my God, you did it! Really, you did it!" And this is actually that one. So when you start to read this, like, first of all, I was really tackling on this like really seriously. So I said, "What?" So what's happening is when the conversation goes, and when the student says something kind of strange, and this one is like watching television, say, "Oh, don't say such a thing! You're going to get into the trap," etc., etc. So as a matter of fact, this book is so funny. And also, this funny comment also gives you such in-depth insight, actually, interestingly, from time to time. So I kind of like to put that out again next time and the following weeks. Okay, as usual, I spoke too much. So maybe save some time for anybody who wants to talk. Or
There's time. There's time. Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So, Issan, maybe you would tell people who would like to join your group how
Yes.
to do that?
Yes, eventually I'd like to share this with Sanshinji. I was having a conversation with Hoko-san. But I think currently on Sanshinji's website, when you go into the disciple list, I think my email is listed.
So there are two places probably that your information shows up. One is the Sanshin Network page, and the other is the schedules and calendar page, which lists all the virtual practice that people are doing. It's in one place or the other.
Great. So you can find my email address, and you can shoot email to me. and then I give you the Zoom information. Currently, it's all online. So, Koan study may require a little bit of a seasoning of your practice. You may be a person who have studied a little longer and sat a little longer to keep up with our conversation, but it doesn't have to be, of course. So if you're interested in Koan, particularly if you have already had lots of questions about other type of Koan study, I would change your perspective. So, perspective. Sorry. So then Koan study will be really more about fun and also moving and immediately applicable to what you are really concerned about in your life and to your work. So that's the direction we are trying to go. So please, if you like, join us.
So, comments, questions?
This is Fusatsu Online. Thank you so much for your teaching.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
I think so.
Okay, so again, like many others, I probably am very, koans can be very challenging initially. So I heard you say, just kind of approach it with an open mind. And then would you recommend like just reading it and then just letting it settle? And then what would be your recommendation when approaching koan practice?
You see, the thing is, with our group, what I do is I offer you the original in Chinese, and then I explain each one of those phrases and meaning, and sometimes character by character. And then sometimes, as a group, we kind of retranslate it. Currently, Shoyoroku is translated by Thomas Clary. Yes, Thomas Clary. And of course it is helpful if you have that book and you can read it. But just like all of those Buddhist texts, reading one English translation usually doesn't make much sense. But you can get a general idea of it. And I would appreciate if you do that before you come to the class. And then you will see how difficult the translation is. And I believe Thomas Clary's work is incredible. It's such an incredible work, but it really shows how difficult the translation of it is. But that portion, we will take care of it by us in the group, in the classroom, so to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you. But once you really start to see what the koan is talking about, it's actually not challenging. It's more about it's moving rather than challenging, I think. I take so much out of this.
Anybody else?
Issan,
Hi.
as you work with the koan, do you generally find yourself, or do you find students starting, when you're looking at it from a certain part of their mind or self, like maybe thinking intellectually possibly at first, and then over time softening, blossoming into some other deeper understanding, like what is that process to you? Can you? Is there words? Is there even words to it? There's probably not.
Understanding of the word is not what we are doing, of course, but koan has such incredible, expression of what it is. So inevitably, I'm so attracted to that description, expression, and so to come to that point, yes, you have to, study the word, but that portion I'll take care of it in the classroom. So I usually spend time to investigate. If I come across some expression I don't understand, I have a strong support. And then usually it is really about the language I don't understand. So then I can actually unwrap what these people are trying to say. So therefore, you don't really have to worry about the Koan study being a language study. That portion I'll take care of it. And then, so I like to present it more like a study of your heart.
What qualifies one to pass the Koan?
Oh, there's no such a thing.
Right.
In my previous system of training, which I completely left, Koan is presented that way. But after all, in Buddha Dharma, there's no success and failure. There's no wise and not wise. There's no separation. So I think that type of image comes from other side of approach to religion, other side of approach to Koan, other side of approach to Buddhism. And then that's not the approach we have. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I do have some comments. But
Oh, yes, please.
yes, I spent a number of years with Myoyu Roshi doing Koan practice. Very different than what you describe. I think it sounds more like what you did before. It was so intense. It felt like life and death itself. You know, you're there for 7 days and you're knee to knee with your teacher and you're doing your Koan. But it was very, it helped your practice unfold in a certain way.
Yes.
But what you describe now, it sounds very different. And I guess we'll hear more about this, of course, as you go along with this, but it's a different view than I've ever had of what a koan is.
Yes.
And I've always kept in mind, I enjoyed the way it was before, but it often was more about the effort that I can give it rather than actually seeing beyond the I and the indescribable. So
Interesting, yes. I took a long years of deprogramming myself. You know, something you take in your formative years really stays, and it's really kind of difficult to deconstruct. You actually gave us such a wonderful, thought-provocative series of talks on art, which was, to my understanding, it was all about the deconstructivism. Because, you know, you pick, let's say, realm of house or realm of garden. When we are growing up, you have all of those, you know, projections tossed into our mind. House should be this way. House should be this shape, and it should be closing this way, etc., etc. But once you start to study Buddhism, Buddha's teaching doesn't really see that, you know, strict divisiveness and strict way to follow this and this and that. In another word, you start to question, is that true? Is that real? And then when you are designing the house, you feel, well, people always say house should be this way, but it can't be this way. And you can kind of deconstruct and reconstruct. And that's how Buddhist art looks like, right? So I thought that was really like the type of the thing I psychologically, mentally went through when I switched from one side to Dogen. And Dogen is really such a great deconstructism artist. He utilizes all these established words and tries to illuminate the true meaning of this word. He takes this and deconstructs, just like a Buddhist garden. Buddhist garden from the aspect of a Western sense of garden should be this way. This is not garden. But then when you really live with this garden, yes, it is a garden, you know. And then Dogen's world is just like this to me. So I thought it was so wonderful about, you actually described it with art by art, this category by this category, including. So yes, and this deconstruction is still ongoing with me too. I think it's constantly ongoing throughout my life because we are human beings and then we have this sense of I which has to be utilized wholesomely, but very often we are sucked into I portion and then we say, oops, it's not part of it. So.
Anybody else? Anybody else in the gallery?
I wanted to offer just an experience of studying Koan with Issan, and I think that in reading Thomas Clary's translations, I don't think I could have found the depth. And I think that the analogy that pops in my mind is if someone stumbled upon our emails to one another, we're trying to convey something important, right? Like, 100 years from now, like the everything may not be understood because the references are not understood. And so having the background of the history explained and also the references of other koans that come in within reading one koan, other koans are referenced, that it helps to build a story, and as Issan said, sort of a Saturday Night Live skit sometimes, that you can rub into your life, and it feels a little like, instead of something definite being said, but just sitting zazen in that way, where there's just more to consider, instead of trying to understand the words. So I really have appreciated that process. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I have just kind of a thought, so for me, when I first started studying Buddhism, I would hear a lot about koans as being, this really sort of like magical almost genre of literature. And as I've practiced more and more, to me it just sort of feels like another genre, like there's poetry, there's prose. Koan are sort of like their own unique format, but beyond that, they don't seem particularly special to me. So I wonder how you would respond to that. Like, do you think that they have something that really makes them merit this kind of aura that they're given, or are they really just another kind of literature?
When I'm studying recently, I just feel tremendous kindness of these people. Getting old, and I really start to see teaching is, act of kindness. You don't actually even have to teach. If you have all of those knowledge, and if you want to keep it to yourself, and you don't have to go into all this trouble to teach. But starting from Gautama Buddha, all these people made an effort and effort and effort and effort and effort, and all this expression left to us. And of course, depending on how each one of us are grown up and our background, educational background, cultural background, etc., etc., some expression hits me really strongly, and sometimes some expression hits many of these people. I feel like, okay, it's another expression. And then, of course, it changes as you go on and on. Some expression that really didn't particularly catch me is currently catching me so much recently. So, yes. So, for instance, Koan, when I was studying in a different way, I really didn't have much feeling for it. it was almost like one gate to pass to the next gate, etc., etc. And I really started to feel like it's like a personal development training course. But currently, I really restarting to see the Koan, like including some of those Koan are crossover. You know, Rinzai school also uses these koans for their own way, but how it hits me is really different. So I have to tell you very honestly, out of 100 koan of Shoyoroku, some koans I still don't feel much for it. But some are like, ooh, I'm going to carry this through. And then sometimes I have a dream about it. And sometimes I wake up like, there are more layers on this koan kind of thing. But it's not only koan, but it's a phrase from all of those, phrases from Dogen's writing, phrases from, you know, Paramita Sutta, Lotus Sutta. So I don't really see it as a separate genre. It's same within Buddha's text. So I don't see it as a genre. I hope that's my way of saying question, answer. Thank you very much.